Hi, my name's Karen O'Connor and welcome to this episode of the Menopause, Marriage and Motherhood podcast. Thanks for tuning in. First of all, and I always forget to do this, so you're my experiment. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I was born in New Zealand, so every now and then you'll hear a little bit of an accent come through. It's very, very rare these days. And I've lived in Australia about 16, 17 years on and off, Gold Coast and Brisbane. And I'm originally a lawyer. I was trained as a lawyer, and then I've been working in-house as a lawyer and property manager for about the last 17 years. So I work for a guy I've known for 22 years now and work for him. And I also do another job 2 days a week, property management. And so I'm coming to the end of my Masters of Counselling. I had a friend of mine say, oh my God, you should counsel people with relationships. Would you like to do that? And I'm like, yes, I would love to. And so I started my degree 3 years ago and I'm just about to finish it. Personally, I've been married 20 years next month and we don't have children, but got some gorgeous nieces and nephews that they're the ones I got to see last weekend. So yeah.
So your relation, so you've changed from being a lawyer to a lawyer and a property manager with more emphasis on the property manager, and now you're going into counselling.
Yes. Yeah. What I really got was being a lawyer was something my parents wanted me to do. I think, when I was growing up, there was the whole LA law program. I don't know whether you remember that program, but it was like the power suits with, and my parents wanted me to be a lawyer and my brother a doctor. Turns out my brother is a cop, so we're kind of like law and order. That's, but I just it wasn't the thing that I wanted to do. It was just very confrontational. And I mean, I know with counselling and lawyering, not a word, but anyway, I'll make it up. It is dealing with people's issues, but it's just a different type of way of approaching it. Yeah.
So with the counselling, what drew you to the counselling?
I think I've always wanted to make a difference with people, and it seemed like now was the right time to do it. So I'm 47, almost 48, and I'd kind of been, like faffing around with this property job going, I don't love it. I don't love it. I'm not even going to pretend. My bosses know this. That's no secret to them. And they know that, the plan is to go full-time counselling. And what drew me to the counselling in particular, so I'm studying through QUT, and their degree is very much based on, not knowing. And I will never, ever have the same experience you've had, Karen, or anyone else's have. And so you're the expert in your life, and being able to there's no way I have to be an expert in it. And I really like that ability to empower people to empower themselves. Yeah.
So, and you want to, rather than it being counselling or one-on-one counselling, you want to do relationship counselling, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So my practice name is Open Relationship Counselling. So a lot of the focus, there will be relationships like our standard, hetero, mono, normative relationships, but a lot of the focus will be on relationships that are more open relationships or polyamorous or swinging, where people are like ethically going into these types of relationships, and they do it with open communication and consent obviously a big one. It's a lot different from cheating, but yeah, the emphasis on people really building their relationships to look the way that they want them, rather than what society says we need to do for the last however many years. It's just basically said it's a man and a woman together. And in the last few years we've seen that change, where we've had gay and lesbian marriage approved, and so there's a lot of, I'm going to probably talk too much, just so you know.
No, this is great, yeah.
So there's quite a few studies, like there's one study in particular, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, that says there's about 20% of adults in the United States have been involved in some kind of open relationship at some stage or another. It might have been when they were teenagers, or they might have had, a swinging experience, or they may have a more long-term committed relationship with somebody. And often what people find, and there's probably 50 years of research on this, that when those types of people go to therapy, quite often there's a like a diagnosis that it's the relationship that's causing the problem, rather than, these are people that are just dealing with the same stuff that everyone deals with, which we're looking at depression or alcohol and drug abuse or work issues or hormonal issues or anything like that. And sort of bringing it back to what they're actually dealing with, going, oh, it's your relationship that's the problem. Because quite often that relationship status will be pathologized.
Right, that's really interesting. So what you're saying is that if somebody's in what do you want to say,
non-monogamous,
that's
yes,
the word.
It's quite often, so it's often referred to as consensual non-monogamy. So
right, okay. So if someone's in a consensual non-monogamy, that's like
monogamous.
Say,
you can say you can say
one of those.
CNM, yeah,
CNM,
or an open relationship.
In an open relationship, then the automatic assumption from the counsellor or the relationship counsellor is that that's the cause of the problem. It's not the finances, it's not the lack of communication, it's the relationship issue. And right, so
yes, and like, it's not all counsellors, obviously. That would be there'd be some kind of story in that, but that's what most of the researchers, and the researchers even up until the last 3, 4, 5 years, that says that still is showing up, that the counsellor thinks it's related to that, rather than, like you said, finances or lack of communication.
Yeah, because the 3 big ones are like finances, lack of communication, and affairs, isn't it? Is that
that's right.
Ones?
Yeah. I mean, sex, drugs, or money, isn't it?
Yeah. So why that particular focus? What drew you to that?
Well, I think,
say, just feel free to talk as much as you want. Like, okay. I'm really happy to find out about this. I'll stop you if I need you to stop, but don't feel like you're saying too much. It's great.
Okay. Well, I think, I've had lots of people I've known through the years that have had those kind of relationships. And I think it's because it's an area that's not really well serviced in Brisbane. I kind of saw a niche for it. That was one of the reasons. And then as I started to read about it more, I got that there really is an opportunity there, and that, I think one of the big things is that all of us, what we want in relationship is love, and you can probably throw a couple of things in here. You want respect and communication and being cared for and supported. Like it's the same regardless of what relationship structure you're in. And I think just being able to provide that for people is amazing.
So you said that there's an opportunity in Brisbane. Yeah, I can't see, that's what I started laughing. Can't see Brisbane as being the centre of the universe for this kind of thing, where it's, fully supported and everything.
I think Seattle might be, I can't remember. It's one of the cities in America that's like, oh yeah, that's just normal. But yeah, I think in Brisbane there's maybe one counsellor that's very poly-friendly. And do you want me to share what poly means? Okay, so polyamory is, so you've got the different types, right? So you've got polyamory, which is where you'll have a couple or a threesome or whatever number of people, but they're all in committed, loving relationships with each other. And it comes from being able to love more than one person and being able to commit to more than one person. And the structure might look different. It might be, you have 3 people, so say 2 men and a woman, or 2 women and a man that are in a relationship and they're all in a relationship with each other. Or it might just be what they call a hinge, where it's just, say, a woman is in relationship with 2 different men. Or you might have 4 people or 5 people and they're all involved with each other or not involved with each other in various configurations. And then that's different from swinging, where swinging is just having sex with other people without having the emotional tie. And couples might often have another couple that they have sex with, but there's not, and they might even be friends with them, but it's not that emotional commitment that comes with intimate relationships.
I have to say, I can't imagine like the amount of effort it takes from me for my relationship, and particularly because I've got 4 kids as well. I'll be buggered if I want to do another relationship. Like, I haven't got the time or the energy. So I'm a bit I suppose bemused and also a bit like, wow, because it's a lot of effort to maintain one relationship. Never mind, complicating the whole matter by all this other stuff going on,
Absolutely. It's not easy and it's not for everybody. That's what I would say. It's like you need to have a very, very high level of communication with your partner and partners. And, so many people would say, no, I don't want to do it. It's really hard work having one relationship and plus my job and plus my children and everything else that's going on in my life. And then there are people that have more room for that kind of thing. And it might be that they are looking for a particular, a different sexual style than their current partner enjoys. They just might have something that they want to explore and they could go do that with somebody else. Or they might just have the ability to love more than one person.
So is there a particular kind of personality or that does this?
Good question. From the people I've met, I wouldn't say there's a particular type of personality. It does tend to be people that have higher education, and that's not across the board. It's but people that are very interested in education or learning in some aspect, whether it's formal or not. But I would say the majority of, especially polyamorous people that I know, have higher degrees. So that's again, like I said, that's the people I know.
Yeah. So that's like a curiosity. It's people who are very curious in life, maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
Generalization here, but maybe the more curious people are the ones who can deal with this more, because I should imagine, like, you've also got to be very secure in who you are and secure in your relationship with the other people.
Definitely. Like, I wouldn't recommend opening a relationship unless you you start there, or you've got that secure connection with your existing partner. And then I think regardless of whether you're starting a new open relationship or you've been in one for 10 years, 20 years, that jealousy can still come up, which is linked to the insecurity that you talked about. And there's some great books out there. The Ethical Slut is a really good one for talking about jealousy and what the causes of it, because it can be a number of different things. It could be that person is better than me, or I'm worried about being left or abandoned. And so there's a lot of root causes of that jealousy. And once you start to dive into those, then you can see, well, where else am I being insecure like that in life? Or what is it that has me feel unstable and not grounded and not loved and cherished and supported? Because there's that tendency to want to get it from other people, but once you know what it is, that is the thing that gets you, like really gets you, then you can start to provide it for yourself. So there is a theory that opening a relationship is also a very spiritual journey, because there's a very much a tendency for us to want to have other people make us happy. And you're learning to make yourself happy and learning to be, by yourself on the couch when your husband's out or your girlfriend's out or whoever it may be is out on a date. There's a lot of emotion to process.
I can't even imagine. Really sorry, I'm just like,
oh
no, my brain's just going. Also, my brain's split in two. One side's going down this imaginary tunnel, I'm trying to just picture all, and the other one's going, stay present in the conversation.
Well, if you want to go in the tunnel a little bit, just tell me what's in there and we can keep talking.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, I was relating it because this is an entirely different scenario to, what's that program called? The one based on the Mormons where
Big Love, where it was,
that kind of thing.
Yeah, Sister Wives.
This is completely different to that, isn't it?
Yes. It is different. So that's polygamy.
Right.
Where one man can marry several wives, and then there's polyandry, where a woman can marry several husbands, and there's a few cultures in Africa that allow that. I'm not sure where else. And then you've got polyamory, which is consent between both of the partners, and it's a very equal thing. And then people might negotiate that it's just the husband that goes out and sees somebody else, or just the wife, but there's very much an emphasis on it being a lot more consensual, not religious based or what else, like a traditional thing.
Right. So how would people, so say it was just the wife that wanted to go out and create another relationship. How would, and I'm assuming they'd then come to you and go, look, this is what we want to do. What processes do you have to go through to create a feeling of consent and security and all the other things, you know?
So there's a couple of stages. So you'll probably, I mean, there's the people who are thinking about it and haven't talked to their partner yet.
By the way, darling, the reason we're here is
well, in that case, I'd get them to come by themselves. Like that's one of the services I'm offering, is that they come and see me by themselves, so they can actually just have the conversation and look at, well, why do I want to do it?
Right.
I mean, because if it's, you know, I don't like my partner anymore, so I want to sleep with somebody else, that's probably a road for disaster when you're opening up your relationship, right? But if there's another reason, so there's the talking to the person by themselves before they even broach the conversation. And then with that, having them having the conversation, and then both of them coming to me. And what I am offering is that, you know, say the woman's seen me and she's talked about it. And quite often, you know, I don't know whether you've ever been to couples counselling or you know anyone that has, but say you get a person, like one of the couples been to this therapist and thinks they're amazing, and the other one will be, well, no, they're going to be on your side already. You know? So I'm offering like a free session for the other person, so they can come along, get to know me and know that there's not any side taking going on. And then the idea is to get them both in the same room and just sort of start to talk about, well, why do you want to do it? And then also strengthening that relationship between the two of them. Like, what is it that they love about each other? Why do they want to stay and not just move on to somebody else? Because that's always an option. And then looking at what's going to provide some safety and some boundaries. So some agreements, you know, quite often couples will have safe sex. That's always one that I'd highly recommend, of course, safe sex arrangements. Or they might have, I don't want you going out. I mean, if you're going out on a date, be home by 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, no sleepovers, or little things, or just kissing to start. Little steps that the person who hasn't come up with the idea can just say, stop, I'm not comfortable, or can we slow down? Right, and just really working with them in that process. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's really, it's really fascinating, because, I mean, having never thought of this, I'm thinking on my toes here.
And we didn't have a lot of time before the interview, really,
no
even.
time to even have a conversation. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, oh, okay. Because if I put myself in that situation where John said to me, okay, I want to stay in our relationship, but, you know, I want to go out and meet other women. Because I'm sorry, but are you just talking about where they want a solid relationship with somebody else, or where they're kind of going out dating? And
that can be up to them. It really is how they want it to look. And, you know, sometimes it will be, say, one of the couple might have known someone for a really long time and just develop feelings for them, and then want to take that a little bit further. So there's already all that love present.
Yeah. So rather than having an affair and doing it behind their partner's back, they're trying to do the right thing. And it wouldn't, John said that to me, it would not land as doing the right thing if he came home to somebody else, but I want to stay with you. And that's, I suppose, is where you come in, and you start talking about, what are you making it mean, and blah, blah.
Yeah, because, you know, you'd feel guilty. Like, a lot of people feel guilty for, even if their partner says, yes, you can go and do it, there's that inherent guilt that would be there, because we're so used, like, you know, all of our TV shows, sorry, not all of them, but most of them, and our books, our fairy tales are all a man and a woman. And anything outside that is a little bit unusual, and we're just so not used to it. There can be a lot of guilt that comes up when people do start to go outside the relationship, even with consent.
I've just got off a phone call with Danielle Dalcortiva, because she was talking about, she said the project she's doing is Free the V, the vagina. So we've been having this discussion about it's, you know, women's vulvas and vaginas are kind of almost a taboo subject, and we're taught almost without words that it should be hidden, and it's something dirty and a little bit shameful, and we don't talk about it, and we certainly don't show it to anybody, you know. So we've just been having that conversation. So it's interesting coming out of that to coming into this conversation, because it is basically part of the same conversation. Almost, you know, it's kind of like a different facet to it, in that this is the way it is. It's unspoken, unexpected, and anything outside those two norms is taboo, and we don't talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're so used to it being a certain way, we don't go outside that. And, you know, I talked about The Ethical Slut before, and that's a book that I think it was written in the 80s or 70s. I'm terrible at remembering facts like that. But they basically said, well, what if we came from the proposition that sex is good or it's nice and good for you, instead of it being such a taboo topic to talk about?
Yeah, that's fascinating. So rather than looking on sex as being, do you know, I've got to say this here, right? Yeah. I was talking to my eldest daughter the other week. She's 21, just turned 21. And it turns out that her sex education at school, and she went to a private all-girls school, consisted of, you and your husband will sort things out when you get married.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's only like in the last, 5 years or so?
Well, she was about 13, 14. So
yeah, okay. Well,
7 or 8 years ago. That was her sex education. And they learned about the actual mechanics of the whole thing. You know, this is how you get pregnant. But beyond that, no. The girls were actually told it's something between you and your husband, and you need to sort it out after you're married.
Yeah. And there's no empowerment in that, really. I mean, I don't know, because you think the knowledge, the knowledge gives us some degree of power, or talking about it and communicating about it, when it's limited to that narrow range, how much... Yeah.
So how much of this has to do with, and I'm going off on a vague tangent here, so you can bring me back if you want to. How much of this has to do with that requirement for women to be the sole property of one guy?
Good question. Let me have a look. How much of it? Well, I think that our narrative in our society is that, you know, as a woman, you'll just belong to one man, which is kind of ridiculous, because I don't know, did you have boyfriends before you were with John?
Not many, but I had, you know.
Exactly right.
My money's worth.
Yeah. So you never would have been, I mean, we're not like we meet someone at 18 and we stay with them for the rest of their lives.
No.
It's just that these relationships are more simultaneous rather than, you know, one after another.
And it's something I can't get my head around, because it's almost like then the core relationship becomes something like, not the same, but like your family, where your family's always there, but you're still wandering off and creating your own life in the world. But, you know, you always come back to your family, that kind of thing. Might not be the best analogy, but, you know.
Well, yeah, it's definitely one way that's done, but that family might start to shift and change too. It might, like if you've got a partner that's been in a relationship with someone for, I don't know, 2, 3, 6 years, you know, someone that's not the wife or the de facto, then that person might get to be part of the family as well. It depends. Like some couples like to have a very inclusive type arrangement, not that they're all sleeping together, but they do things like have family dinner, or they get together regularly, or they know each other, like they'll talk on the phone, or they'll know what's going on in each other's lives and support that. Or it might be a don't ask, don't tell.
I just can't get my head around it. I'm really
I know. Well, there's a lot of different structures for it. So.
Yeah, but at the same time, I find it really fascinating, but kind of not being able to put myself in that situation. really struggling to verbalize because I just can't get my head around it. So give me, so there's several different types.
Yes.
Of these relationships. Which would be, so if somebody were to try this first time, which relationship would be the easiest one to go for?
Oh, I'm going to drive you crazy because I'm not going to give you an answer to that. So, well, the answer I'll give you is very much, it depends on the where they're starting.
Right.
So if it's a couple and one of them has fallen in love with their best friend or something like that and wants to enter a sexual relationship, then it's going to be different from someone who just wants to go out and bar hop and do one night stands, right? It's a very, very different scenario.
Right. And what age range are the people? Do they tend to be younger people or is it middle-aged people?
Full range. I think that I would say, there's teenagers experimenting, and then I don't have the statistics on this, and then I think the 20 to 30 before people settle down and have babies. And then I think once you hit mid 40s, well, actually, I don't even know. I think I'm making those statistics up. But there is, I think once the children have gone, that's another time when it's likely to open up.
Yeah, because you get a bit more energy and time to yourself.
That's right, yeah.
And the financial pressures are gone as well.
Yeah, exactly. Or when, there's that so-called magic age for women and men where the hormones are at peak. I think, what is it, men like 18 and women like 30, 35, 37, somewhere around there. Like that, yeah. I mean, that might be something that pushes it, starts to, or has people start to think about it then.
Right. And does it tend to be, I mean, you kind of answered this, but does it tend to be childless couples, or is it bear no relation?
No, I've met people that have had children. I've met people that have had children and they've had someone else come into the relationship that then starts to look after those children and has taken the husband and wife's last name and I think is planning to have a child with them. I've met people that there's no children involved, or there'll be children in the outside relationships. It can be either. And there's a varying degree of people being very open with their children or waiting till they're a bit older to talk to them.
So in terms of when people come to you, is that like mainly before they start doing this to negotiate the whole deal, or is it afterwards?
Well, I'm opening my practice in December, so I can't, that's just to be clear on that. So I'm not opening, so I'll be able to answer that after December. Just that I need to want to finish my degree before setting up the clinic. But I have, I've talked to a lot of poly people in particular over the years. So most of the people I've spoken to are already in established relationships, and there are a few that are like, oh, I don't know, I'm kind of interested in that, and they have started to open their relationship or see more than one person at a time. There might be someone who's single and then starts to see more than one person. So it doesn't also always necessarily start from a couple. And then just them being able to have some kind of safe space to share without judgment.
So I'm assuming for your master's, you did some kind of dissertation, thesis kind of thing. What was that on?
Oh, we don't have to do a dissertation or master or thesis. I know. I'm so excited about that. We do a clinical project, and I haven't been able to do mine on polyamory or open relationships, merely for the factors where part of our work is based on the work that we're doing with our clinic clients. So we have clinic for the whole year, and I'm not seeing any poly clients. So I don't know how we would have arranged that because they come through the university. But I have written a number of papers looking at the like the power imbalance, because there's there's, like I said, the narrative in our society that people are monogamous, and that can cause a power imbalance if the therapist is saying, no, you can't be anything but that. And then the client walks away, disempowered and not really listened to or heard. And then just, I've done other assignments on just what kind of counselor would be needed in that area. Because you've got people that are, because you've got people who are taking on having the relationship that they're designing. So they're probably not going to want a counselor that's going to tell them what to do. And then we also look at how family systems therapy can come into that, because sometimes things like, genograms can make a difference to be able to map out where all the relationships are, what who's in relationship with who, and, how long people have been together. And
so you used two technical terms then. One was something about family therapy, and then
family systems therapy is basically, we all have families, we have, whether we see our families or not, we have parents, and then we might have siblings, and then we might have children, and there'll be a way that you relate to those people. Some of the family systems stuff looks at first child, second child, but then there's also, different ways that you are in a relationship. I don't know whether you've had this experience where John will say to you, can you put the rubbish out? And you're like, yeah, sure. And then 2 hours later, you still haven't done it. And then he gets mad, and it makes him mad, but you keep doing it. So you've got that kind of causation cycle going on there. And the same thing can happen in open relationships, where, you might say to your partner, I don't mind you going on a date, but can you be home by 10 o'clock? And they come home at 11 o'clock. So what's going on there, looking at that? Or different, like another family systems aspect is a concept of triangulation. We triangle, what a triangle looks like, and you might have 3 people in a relationship, and 2 of them can side with one of the others, against the other, or that, that kind of imbalance in power there. And one of the things that I really stand for is that just because you've got a couple that are in a relationship with other people, that those people don't feel like they're second-class citizens. And of course, that primary relationship has, longevity, or they might have shared finances or shared children, and there's a lot of commitment there, which never ever should be discounted. But it doesn't mean they can go, all right, you're not seeing her anymore, without any explanation or anything like that, and have that person just treated like they're disposable.
Yeah, because the balance of power thing is actually quite fascinating, because that, to me, would be the main, or what I can see to be the main issue when it comes right down to the core of it, is there's a loss of power for the person whose partner wants to have another relationship. They're going to feel powerless, and then they might turn it round and turn the power against them and go, no, you can't, and just
that's right. And so what I really want to focus on is that everyone in the relationship feels empowered, because you've got, say you have a guy that's been in a relationship, a marriage for 30 years, and then he starts seeing somebody new. There could be that very much she's a shiny new toy, and the wife or the partner is a little bit feeling unattractive, or feeling like she's not getting the attention. And yet the new person in the relationship is sitting there going, well, I'm never going to have 30 years of marriage with this guy, and I want that. And they can't, because, we can't have multiple marriages in Australia. So there's a lot of kind of envy both ways, sometimes jealousy, and like just looking at that and like starting to unravel it for people so they get some kind of power over it. Well, it's interesting, because there's been quite a bit on TV. Like I watched a couple of shows, I think it was a couple of months ago, and it was really interesting because there were two shows in a row that had a reference to, open relationships. One of them was The Politician, where one of the state senators had been in a what they called a throuple for, I don't know, 10 years or something like that. I know, I knew that would make you laugh.
The media, don't you?
I knew it was going to make you laugh. And then I can't remember what the other one was, but it's a really different storyline to things like, think about Twilight is one that always comes to mind, where there's the vampire and the werewolf, and she doesn't know which one she loves. And there's always that playing off. And it turned out that the werewolf was in love with her daughter when she had it. But, But yeah, normally there's that real kind of competition and fighting over somebody rather than.
That's it. There's a winner and a loser. There's a winner and a loser. Yeah.
Yeah. And what if we brought community to it?
Yeah. Or just took out. So there's a lot of comparison. I mean, that would be the cause of the jealousy, the lack of feeling of loss of power and everything, is the comparison, isn't it?
That's
and that
right.
was what you said about the other love interest as well. You know, she's feeling a loss of power, or he, whatever it is, because they haven't had 30 years of marriage, you know. And it's all comparison and win and loss. It's like there's only black and white. You can only win or lose. That is our society's perception of this.
Yeah, that's right. And it's very individualistic, like what can I get, rather than how can we make that whole group of people happy.
Yeah.
And satisfied and, you know, really supported and loved.
Yeah. No, I'm fascinated. Not fascinated is not the right word. I like to think that that I'm really open-minded. And it's interesting how I notice that, you know, when something comes up that is left of my field, I'm just like, whoa, I'm really thrown.
Well, I think a big part of my style of therapy too is challenging. So that fits perfectly. Yeah, I mean, not like you got to do, you know, but actually, well, what do you think about that? And kind of throwing something. There's another guy that's in my counselling group. He calls it throwing hand grenades. But
my brother does that really well.
Yeah.
He says, if he's bored, he'll just chuck a hand grenade onto Facebook and then sit back and watch the laugh. But yeah, I find it intriguing that I'm finding it so difficult to get my head around it. That's what's fascinating me. I'm like, isn't that interesting? Yeah. Because normally I can, you know, one of my things is I can put myself into other people's shoes. I might not like it and I might not agree with it, but I'm pretty good at doing it. But in this case, I'm just like, I cannot comprehend it. I'm really just like...
It is interesting. And I mean, like I said, you're just so saturated with couple stories. And
all the Disney princesses, they go and know their prince and, you know, live happily ever after.
Yep.
Yeah, and they still look the same when they've had 8 children. You know, they can still fit into the same dresses. I don't think so.
Exactly. Exactly. And, you know, it's just like relationships. There'll be times when you're attracted to other people. You're not going to do anything about it necessarily. But there's like that thought that once you're with somebody, you're going to be with them and you're not even going to think about, you know, you see that guy walking down the street and go, oh, he's got nice arms. Like, it's not expected that you'll be real about having those sorts of thoughts.
No, it's not, is it? And it would take a complete shift, a complete paradigm shift to go, okay, I've still got my relationship here. That's my solid relationship. But I am able to go over and indulge that idea, fantasy, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the right term is. That's a paradigm shift for people. It does feel as alien to me as going to a different culture and
yeah. Oh, look, it's definitely not for everybody. And then I think if we think about the divorce rate is something like 50% or getting close to 50%. And I remember reading some book that said, you know, if we had cars that were failing at that kind of rate, we'd have an automatic recall. And so it's just like looking at, well, what other ways could we do marriage? And this book was discussing, you know, people living in separate houses and only seeing each other 3 nights a week, and that really worked for them. Or then this concept that I'm talking about with, you know, more sexually open relationships. Or I don't know, you get a group of friends living in the same house rather than it just being, you know, and I don't mean like, you know, uni students, but as we get older, living in that kind of arrangement and being really supportive of each other. And just starting to think outside that normal.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, because like now you've spoken to me about it, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm starting to be able to visualize it, but it is only a start for me. It's just like that's the entrenched belief for
That's
most
right.
people. And I think as we move through society now, we're getting more of the right, I'm going to apologize to everybody here. I do not know the technical terms, right? The non-binary and the whatever else. And like I believe that if you're attracted to somebody, regardless of your gender, regardless of whatever, you should be able to enter into a relationship with that person if it's dual consent. That's my belief.
Yes.
And as we move down that path, then it's only natural that this perceived only way of having a marriage, of two people in a marriage, will then start to change, and will then there will become other options, because it won't be quite so rigid and structured.
Yeah. I think my boss and I have been talking about this in the last week, is this whole spectrum of male and female. And then I think there's a spectrum of monogamous and non-monogamous. We'll all be on a scale. There will be somewhere on that, and it might shift during our lives. Like, even if you were, say, in a polyamorous or some other form of open relationship, and then you had children and your focus was on the children, you might slide back to the more monogamous end. But then after the children's are gone, your hormone might go crazy, and you're like, yeah, I want to sleep with more people or have intimate relations. And it's not all about sex, right? A lot of it is, there's something that your partner might not be providing for you emotionally, or there's something you want to explore emotionally with somebody else. Then you might move up to this other end.
Yeah, that would make more sense to me, that it's not like you make a decision at 18 and that's it,
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Circumstances and personality change as we go through our lives. We're not the same people.
That's right. And then we might be dealing with something. I mean, you might have a partner that you love that is unable to be intimate with you. Say they've got sick, or there's some kind of disability. That might be another reason that you'd want to go outside the relationship.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really enjoyed that. That was so cool. So
thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Menopause, Marriage and Motherhood podcast. Come and join us in our new Facebook group, the Menopause, Marriage and Motherhood group, where we'll discuss what happened in this podcast and all the other things that have got to do with midlife. I'll see you there.